Good morning. How are you all today? And welcome to Integrative Preparedness. Well, yesterday I made a video about the dangers of Zionism, how many people, many Americans, many people throughout the world have been misled on some major things about Israel. And today I'm going to warn you about what I consider to be probably the greatest threat against the United States and the world, and that is Islam. Now, people might say, don't you mean militant Islam and radical Islam? No, I mean Islam. Radical Islam and militant Islam are the tip of that spear, but Islam as a whole is the greatest danger. We've seen it throughout history, and we're seeing it again in play right now within our own country. I'm going to read something out of my third book that a commenter, one of our viewers, recommended that I did. He sent me the page number and the book and everything, and I'm always amazed at those of you, those stonemonters out there, who remember and can access the information in so many of my books. I have to be honest, when I think about a scene or a lesson that I put in the books or whatever, I have difficulty remembering what book it's in, because it's just all one story to me, and so I find myself searching around. So I'm going to read that, and then I'm going to talk about what I more about the danger of Islam. I think most people have no idea what's going on. And somebody said about yesterday's, he said, I think a lot of what you said went over a lot of people's heads. And probably so, because I said a lot of things that most people have never heard before, and don't think about, and had not been exposed to. So I get that, but I think that a lot of people knew exactly what I was talking about. A lot of people learned a lot from what I said, and then I heard a few feelers, didn't I? Yes, I did. I heard some feelers. One person left a comment, I'm Jewish and I'm out of here and I'm never watching you again. Well, this wasn't a crack on Jewish people, but I guess you didn't listen. You just wanted to be a victim. So you just decided to get all butthurt and leave. And had you had the courage to consider a truth that was different than what you've been spoon-fed, you might learn something. It might improve your life. I also had some people, and I told people, no argument, no hatred on here. Do not come on here and start an argument about this. If you want to do it on your own channel. But of course, most of those people, they don't have their own channels. They just come in and nitpick on other people's. But I did have a few come on and say, read such and such. And then they leave a scripture verse. And they don't realize that it shows the limitations of their knowledge, of their biblical knowledge. And I left them up there so that you can read them if you'd like. And my response in each case was, I have read that, and you need to read the whole Bible. The whole thing. Have you ever considered that? It's a big book. It's full of a lot of stuff. Maybe stuff that you don't know. And that's certainly true. And too many people, especially in biblical considerations, kind of fall prey to this. They find a few things that support what they have chosen to believe, and boy, they are ratcheting onto it. They don't even realize that the rest of the book does not support what they've decided to believe. Okay, so if you want to, if what I said is new to you, is strange to you, if it's threatening to you, read the rest of the book. Okay? I'll just leave it at that. Today I am drinking out of one of my new favorite mugs. You see this beautiful thing? Stonemont, Where Life is Good. This was made by and given to me by Parker Kelly and her husband Robert. And on the front, of course, it has Stonemont, Where Life is Good, the Stonemont gate. You can't see that too well, but I can. It says Stonemont right there. The gate to Stonemont. And on the back, it has a list. There's a bee. I hope he doesn't sting you. On the back is a list of my books: The Reversion, The Revival, The Renewal, An Appeal to Heaven, The Blessings of Freedom, Hostages to Fortune, and On Wings Like Eagles. And boy, I love this thing. They gave me two. I've been drinking out of the black one, and today I thought I'm gonna do the green one. And they probably didn't know that green is my favorite color, and black and green are my favorite color combinations. So let me take a sip out of this black brew out of my green mug, and we will get started. Ah, yes. Okay. In my opinion, Islam is the greatest danger to the United States, to the UK, to everywhere, and the world. How familiar are you with the history of Islam? Most people are not. Most people aren't. We already have a large section of our country that has been overtaken by Muslims, and I'm not attacking them individually. I want to make that clear. There are probably, I don't know this to be a fact, I'll be honest, most of the interactions that I've had with Muslims have been negative, okay? But I'm sure that there are millions of good Muslims around, and friends of mine who served over in the GWAT say that they made a lot of good Muslim friends. And maybe there's a difference between those who are living under the oppressive boot over there and those who have come over to invade our country and take it over. They want to take us down. They're going to do it. It turns out that they're not going to have to do it militarily. They're not going to have to do it with attacks. They're going to outbreed the native population here in the United States, and they are going to take over the political levels, and they are going to change this country to where they want it to be illegal to not be Muslim, so that when they finally get the powers and they institute Sharia law, well, you either convert or you pay the tax, and I forget what that's called. There's a tax on non-Muslims to be able to live in a Muslim country. But, you think that life's just going to go along the way it is? Well, go to Saudi Arabia. I've never been there. I acted like I just knew. I don't, but apparently they don't see a lot of churches, Christian churches, in the Muslim countries. But anyway, this is I'm going to read this out of my third book, The Renewal. And when I was up in Minnesota last time, I was in St. Cloud. When I went to the Walmart, I thought I was in Mogadishu. It's just amazing. Okay. So we're going to start here. And this, of course, for those of you who have read the Stone Mount series, you know that it's the book after the collapse of everything as a result of a global killing CME, coronal mass ejection. Everything is taken down, all electronics, electricity, everything, and we have gone back to an 1840s existence, essentially. And up in Minnesota is this guy who is a self-claimed caliph who wants to establish a new caliphate in the United States. And he started up in Minnesota. I throughout the rest of the books, and I'll show you the books here in a minute. If you haven't read them, I would definitely suggest that you do. A friend of mine said the other day, he says, man, reading your books is like you knew everything that was going to happen. How did you know everything was going to happen? Well, I pay attention, and I just think, what's going to happen next? It's just about time. Nah, it's nice, isn't it? Okay, will do. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I had to talk to a neighbor. As I always say, those neighbors that some people say we don't know? We know them all. So anyway, yeah, I'll let you read my books, and I'll show you the series here in a minute, and tell you how to get them. But if you haven't read them, I suggest you do. I talk about what may be coming, what has happened, why we got to where we are, and you'll either just enjoy the story or you will learn a lot, and probably both. Okay, I'm going to read out of this. This is the 8th chapter of The Renewal. Okay, there we go. Bar Magan Scimitar rested his hands on the concrete half-wall that surrounded the balcony and looked out over the expansive manicured grounds below him. Men dressed in white trimmed bushes and groomed flower beds, careful in each of their movements under the watchful eyes of the Ilalala Gariga, the house guards, lest they commit an infraction that would incur the wrath of the ever-watchful Sultan and result in one of the many punishments the guards administered with frequency and relish. His eyes rose. Now I'm going to be describing here, excuse me for putting this aside, I'm going to be describing why Muslims have been able to take over so much of our country, and it has to do with the naivety and weakness of so many American people. Now, many Americans are not weak at all, but many are, and this is what's going to cause the collapse and the fragmentation. His eyes rose above the massive pine trees that surrounded the grounds to a sky as clear and blue as he remembered from his homeland, and he imagined all of the land that lay beneath the sky, ready to be taken now that the Galo, the infidels, had lost their technology. The shell that had once been St. Cloud smoldered in the near horizon, and the even more massive destruction that had been the twin cities of Minneapolis-St. Paul lay farther to the southeast. He returned his attention to the slaves tending his garden. They had been an easy people to tame, so trusting, so giving. They had welcomed him and his brethren into their midst, providing them with food, homes, community programs, and most importantly, tolerance. And he had used the blindfold of their tolerance to work against them from within their own country, their own city, and their own homes. When they had welcomed him again after he had gone back to his country to fight against their own sons and daughters, then returned, he knew that there was no limit to their naivete, their weakness, or their self-loathing. Such people deserved to be subjugated, for they were slaves at heart. He turned to the giggling of several of his children as they ran out onto the balcony playing a game, and he stood still, smiling with pleasure as they encircled him, attempting to hide themselves in his robes. Their laughter filled his heart with joy and reminded him that his jihad would bring this new land under their future authority. The children ran off squealing, and he looked back to the south. His brothers in the faith had done well in Iowa, Nebraska, and northern Missouri. Their centers and communities had been ready when the great blessing came, the great blessing being the collapse of everything. And within a few weeks, the unbelievers had dissolved into frantic refugees in their own land, struggling to survive from one day to the next, their once great society a shambles. Eventually, fear and the threat of starvation had brought many to the faith as converts, though he knew that their belief was no more genuine for their new religion than it had been for their old one. Others had attempted to resist and were slaughtered. The fair-haired daughters had been brought in to bear children for the brethren as second and third wives if they were agreeable, or sent to be sold at the market in Iowa if they were not. The towns with colleges and universities had been the easiest, so filled with those who had been taught to despise their own culture and heritage that they not only welcomed but celebrated anyone or anything that joined them in their hatred of that culture and heritage, as they proudly advanced the insane notion that their strength came from diversity and partnership with those unlike them. How often had they been warned? One of their own presidents had stated over 150 years ago that America's demise could only come from within. He himself had seen the commitment and ferocity of their warriors in his own country, had doubted that America could ever be brought down until he arrived in Minnesota, posing as a refugee and seeing how much of America's policies were driven by the softest and least competent of its people. Then he knew it was possible, and when the great blessing had occurred, he gladly accepted the calling that he knew was his. He turned to the east, still smiling. It was time for prayers. That's it, guys. It is the goal of Islam to conquer the world, and that means, of course, the United States and Canada and Australia and Germany and the UK and everyone that they haven't yet overcome. If you look at the spread of Islam from its inception with Muhammad, and you see the spread and how they spread once throughout the Middle East and into Europe, and then they were repelled and they were driven back. You know, study the Crusades, study Charles Martel, but they continue to rise again. And they can rise within societies that have grown soft. If you've read John Glubb's Fate of Empires, and if you haven't, I suggest you do. You can find the PDF online for free. Just read it. It's not a long read, 50 pages, something like that. And he traces the rise and the fall of empires, of many empires over the centuries. And he's found that the average empire, which the United States is one, their lifespan is around 250 years, and guess what? We're celebrating our 250th anniversary next year, aren't we? And he shows the beginning, the ascendancy, the peak, the descendancy, and the collapse of each of those empires. And he shows that each of them have pretty much the same things in common. Well, if you read that and you see the different places on the graph, you'll see that America is in the descendancy. Now, how close we are to the bottom, to the total collapse, hard to say, because we have a lot of people who are fighting back against it. But the question is, do we have enough people fighting back against it that we're going to be able to prevail? Are we going to be able to take this country back to where it should be? And I don't make any apologies about saying that. America was based as a Christian country. The idea that it wasn't is one that's been spread by anti-Americans and communists. And a letter, a misunderstood letter from Adams to the Barbary states. I won't get into that. Just like the so-called separation of church and state that's not in the Constitution or the Declaration or anything. It was from a letter, as most of you know, a letter from Jefferson to the Danbury Baptist Church. So we've been, you know, there's been a concerted effort over the last certainly 100 years, more than that actually, to destroy the fabric of America by casting doubt on its foundational principles, and bringing in those things that will destroy it. Communism being, you know, the main one, and the one to which most people most easily fall, because, you know, if you don't know any better, to a child the concepts of communism sound good, right? From each according to their ability, to each according to their need. We're going to take care of everybody. Everybody is equal and all that. You know, every 6-year-old and every liberal says, oh, that's just a wonderful idea. That's great. And of course, as we get older and we learn and we become, you know, we develop intelligence, we know better than that. But Islam is, in my opinion, and I think that's a pretty darn good opinion, Islam is the greatest threat to the United States. And it's the threat that most people are totally unaware. And if they are a little bit, when they hear people like me talk about this, they refuse to believe it or to listen to it, because deep down in that place of softness that they think is a core, which isn't, it just sounds racist and Islamophobic and all sorts of phobics and ists. Let me take another sip out of this beautiful mug. I've written about this in my books, and one of the reasons that I love Atlas Shrugged, because it shows how the soft the parasites, because of their numbers and their selfishness, are able to overcome the producers. If you haven't read Atlas Shrugged, you should. It's a piece of work. Don't be dissuaded by the fact that Ayn Rand was an atheist. That doesn't dispel all of her wisdom. Okay, I'm sorry that she was an atheist. I'm sorry for her. But I don't think I've ever read anything that so accurately describes collectivism, and it shows how the producers, you and I, the country at one time, can be totally subjugated and destroyed by the parasites who produce nothing, who only consume, but lay claim to the products of the producers. Read that book. 3 books every person should read. The Bible, and you should read it so that you understand the whole thing, so that you just don't send me a single verse thinking that it proves something that it doesn't. Okay. Atlas Shrugged and The Naked Communist. Now, there's millions of other great books out there. Read them too. The person who doesn't read doesn't know. The person who doesn't read bases things on opinions, not on knowledge. And that's the problem that we have today. Too many people don't have an understanding of history, of how the world works, how their government works, how business works. That's why we see so many stupid videos put out on some channels about what's going on with the economy. They don't have a clue, but man, they got an opinion, right? So I'm going to leave it at that. Islam is the greatest threat we face. How do we overcome it? Well, we overcome it politically, because they're not fighting us for the most part. I mean, we'll have those occasional attacks, but notice that most of the attacks happening now are transgender. Okay. Now, is that because of them? Well, no. I mean, Islam shares a lot of values, if you want to call it that, with traditional conservatism, right? Right. The transgenderism, the transgender plan. Look how many of these killings have been done by transgenders. Where does that come from? Where does that come from? We could go down a conspiracy road with that, couldn't we? But I won't this time. But we will lose if we continue to give in to the softness and the weakness of those that have been trying to destroy our country through softness and weakness. The way we fight against it is to raise good families, raise good children, have a lot of children, and to fight it politically, because, like I started to say, they're not fighting this in our country physically. At least not on the surface. They enjoy watching us tear ourselves apart. And I'm not saying they don't have a part in that, but I'm not saying that others don't have a part in that either, right? So, have kids. Raise good, strong kids. Raise strong families. Live your life and according to and spread the message of Jesus Christ. And be involved politically. Politically is the only way we win this without having to go beyond politically. And if it gets to that point, that's a hell nobody wants to live through here on our own soil, right? Okay. All right. Oh, I meant to tell you, I told you I was going to tell you, that if you haven't read the Stonemont series, why not? You're interested in preparedness, aren't you? That's why you're at a preparedness channel. If you haven't read them, I suggest it be the very next thing you do. My books, the Stonemont series, The Reversion, the Revival, the Renewal, On Appeal to Heaven, The Blessings of Freedom, Hostages to Fortune, and On Wings Like Eagles. It's a story of a prepared family who, as a result of their preparedness, was not only able to continue living a good, high-quality life after a total collapse of everything, but was able to help others as well. It's what I call the complete plan for preparing for, surviving, and rebuilding after a total collapse of everything. And it's a great story. You will learn more in here than you can imagine. I've had people said they've been studying preparedness for decades and still learned so much from these. I had one person said they learned something on almost every page. But you won't even know that you're learning because it's a great story. You'll be absorbed in the story and in the characters. You might fall in love with one of them. I've had a number of people say that they did. But the way to get them is either through Amazon, and that link's down below, or there's a better way, and the way that I love you to do it, and that is directly from me through our website, stonemont.us. And when you do that way, the reason I like you to do that is because then I sign each one for you, and I write a note in each one for you, and then you can buy the whole set at kind of a discount, which you cannot do through Amazon. And then I also send you the Stonemont notebook. And it's a great place to share your notes and your thoughts and the lessons that you've learned and all that. So if you haven't read them, I would suggest you do so post haste right away. You'll love the story and you will learn so much. Okay, Amazon or stonemont.us right down below. Okay, so that's it. Take this seriously, guys. Take this seriously. There is no more serious threat than this. And very possibly a CME is the only thing that could keep us from having to continue the fight that we're involved in now, the political fight and the technology fight. But, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. We know that we're pretty much assured of CME at some time, but we don't know when it's going to happen. We can't rely on that. We have to fight the day's battles with the day's tools, right? Okay. Well, you all have a good day. Remember, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And you all have a good one. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.